Chapter 36. Fireworks. The preparations for the wedding weren't particularly grand or exciting, but I put my full effort into it. A wedding during such frightful times seemed to lift the spirits of everyone in the camp. It was a good distraction from the dangers ahead, and gave everyone something to celebrate rather than despair. People were happy to volunteer to build a small arch, pick flowers to decorate it with, and prepare logs for people to sit on to watch the event, since I didn't want to risk clogging up the twins for any possible refugees still trying to get through. Over the next few days, work was split between working on the wall and defenses and preparing for the wedding. We were sitting next to the wall, where we were creating fortified trenches. We were filling the trench with spiked sticks, tipped with dragon glass shards, to slow down the dead should they manage to cross the water. Many such defenses had been created, including inlaying dragon glass shards along the bridge of the twins, leaving only 2 thin footpaths for people to travel along. This would turn the bridge into a lane full of permanent death for the dead should they cross it, and serve to slow them down considerably. "Serena," I said after a long draught of water, "would you be opposed to expanding the scope of the ceremony?" Serena looked up from her cup, face covered in dirt as she'd been helping with the work. "In what way?" I leaned forward with a cheeky smile. "What if, instead of a single wedding, we make it a mass event?" "You mean marry multiple couples at once?" Serena crooked a brow. "Precisely," I nodded her. "There no shortage of young folk here, and no doubt many of them are with their loved ones. Surely there are some who would wish to be married before the dead come. It would be great for morale and give them something worth fighting for." "Survival isn't enough to fight for?" Tyrion quipped with a smirk. I shook my head insistently. "No, that's just surviving. But people with a reason to fight beyond surviving fight harder. They fight longer. They give until their dying breath to protect what they have." "They'd be fighting for their future with their spouse," Serena agreed. "They'd fight for a future with a family that hasn't arrived yet. That's worth fighting for more than merely staying alive." "Men will give their lives gladly if they believe it will keep their families safe," Robert agreed. "I've seen men who should have died weep from 100 wounds fight with the ferocity of 10 men and slay dozens well after they should have fallen, all while the cries of their loved ones roar from their lips." "Are you saying love makes a man stronger?" Tyrion asked skeptically. Robert leaned forward and locked eyes with Tyrion, then pointed to me. "Imagine for a moment you saw Merida surrounded by a swarm of those dead bastards. Truly imagine it. She's swinging her hammer. She's crushing them as quickly as she can. But for every one she fells, 2 more take its place. She's cut, bruised, bleeding. You can see the desperation in her eyes. She's being overwhelmed. What would you do?" Tyrion looked at me, imagining the scenario Robert had weaved for him. His expression tightened, and his mouth dropped into a frown. "I see your point." I smiled at Tyrion. "People don't fight for their own survival. They fight for the survival of the things they love." Tyrion nodded, his chest heaving as he realized he had instinctively been tightening his hands into fists, and giving them a reason to be fresh in their mind can only help. "It's an inspired idea." "Well?" I asked as I looked at Serena. "Would you be agreeable to the idea?" Serena smiled and nodded. "Of course. I think it's a wonderful idea. You may wish to speak to your future husband about that before you make any final decision," Tyrion said. "My brother does not like surprises." "I think your brother's old enough to understand the benefits of what this will mean for people," Serena replied. "But I will tell him what the Queen has decided, and he will be happy to comply with her wishes." Tyrion laughed. "You're the only person I can imagine who would think to tell my brother what he will and won't do without sitting the Iron Throne first. Perhaps that's what he likes about me, Serena smirked. What? That you remind him of his sister? Robert huffed dryly. Gods only know that woman did enough commanding and demanding for 10 kings. Best he doesn't look for that in you, my lady. Considering the enemy coming our way, perhaps we shouldn't conjure up the memory of the dead, Tyrion mumbled, his tone indicating that he was uncomfortable thinking about his sister. He had never liked her, she'd made sure of that, but it didn't mean he was happy about what had happened to her in the end. Indeed, I agreed with him, standing as I did so. Best that we focus on the present. Why don't we take a break from this work and begin to make arrangements for as many marriages as we can handle? The others agreed and stood with me. While there had been work going to ensure a single wedding would be able to be celebrated, we now had to ensure that however many could happen, would happen. Serena spoke with Jaime, who didn't bother putting up a fight. To her surprise, he was happy to oblige her. In fact, he went further still. He told Serena that he would ensure that every couple that was wed on the day would receive 100 gold as a gift from House Lannister once this whole affair was over with. He didn't want that information spread before the weddings, though. His desire was to see genuine love flourish that day, and was afraid that if it was made public, others might try to take advantage of the promise. As far as the rest of us were concerned, we busied ourselves spreading the news about the mass wedding invitation. This came as a surprise to everyone. Those who had been helping to set up the furnishings and decorations were especially dumbfounded because of the potential such an announcement meant for the expansion of their work. They were baffled, but not unhappy. It was a fine thing to focus on love in these times. Additional work towards that end was no terrible task. The day of the weddings arrived, and nearly 200 couples had gathered at the wall where the ceremony would be held. Platforms along the wall for its defense were used to allow the couples to stand above the crowd and be seen. Tyrion and I stood with Serena and Jaime on their platform. I approached the front of the platform and smiled, using my magic to send my voice around the crowd. People of Westeros, welcome to this unique and happy event. Today, we celebrate life, living, and the future by joining these many lovely couples bound together in matrimony. There came a round of applause and a cheer from the crowd. I know not all of you share my faith in the drowned god, I continued. Many of you are devoted to the faith of the Seven. Regardless of which god or gods we choose to devote ourselves to, they bring people into our lives. People who makes us stronger, who complete that part of our soul which longs for acceptance, love, and commitment. I turned from side to side, motioning to all the couples arrayed before the crowd. And whichever gods have watched over all of these individuals, they have seen fit to guide to them a person who has made their life complete and worth living. Among everyone here today, in this time of turmoil and fear, they see hope. They see love. They see a future worth seizing when it's right in front of them. They are blessed and to be envied, I said as I turned to look up at Serena and Jaime. It is my honor to speak for them and to bind them together as husband and wife. Tyrion stepped up and handed me a folded cloak made of rich garnet, trimmed with golden thread lace. I took the cloak and held it to my chest. We have gathered here in the eyes of gods and men to witness the joining of man and woman, I smiled up at the pair. Those before you today have chosen to walk this life together. Each man has dedicated his body, his will, his effort, and his life to the woman who stands before him. Each woman has dedicated her devotion, fidelity, obedience, and trust to the man before her. I moved closer to them and held the cloak up so that Jaime could take it. Gentlemen, I ask that you now place your cloak on your bride, I looked up at Jaime. This act will symbolize you taking her under your protection. Whether you wish to speak the vows of the Seven or make whatever promises you desire, we will give you a few moments. Jaime moved behind Serena and allowed the cloak to unfold itself before gently placing the cloak over her shoulders. His voice was tender, resigned, but genuine. Father. Smith warrior, mother, maiden, crone, stranger. I am hers, and she is mine, from this day till the end of my days. As Jamie moved to stand before her once more, Serena smiled at him as I slipped her an iron bracer that I had crafted myself. The bracer was immaculately sculpted to resemble a six-pointed star, the points of which spread around to wrap around the wearer's arm. I'd polished the iron to a mirror finish and ensured that however the light caught it, it would shine like a star. I offer you iron, Serena said as she slipped the bracer onto Jamie's forearm. Iron of body, iron of will, iron of heart. Moldable by the fire of your passion, the strength of your direction, and the rock of your determination. With iron, salt, and blood, I am your from this day till the end of my days. As I went to respond, a low pop resounded behind me, then another, and another. I turned to find the source of the sound as several more pops were followed by more and more. Above us, every pop represented a portal opening up just long enough for something small to fly through. Fireworks, Merida? Serena asked with a mixture of delight and confusion. How did you manage that? I didn't, I whispered in fear as I watched the objects sail in a large arc up in the air, then down towards the wall. Screams erupted to either side of us as the objects smashed against and around the platforms. Green light poisoned the air as pain and terror mixed with the suddenly chaotic atmosphere. Dragonfire leapt forward, engulfing the wooden platforms, and those on them, spread to the pitch-covered wall, and threatened to spread through the crowd. As the dragonfire licked the wall, the length of the structure was nearly instantly engulfed in the nightmare-eyed sky. Now, resembling a dancing jade dragon leagues across, billowing madly in the wind. Panic set in, and the crowd began to scatter, their fear spreading faster than even the fire could hope to. I reached out and locked out all magic to the rest of the world as an instinctual defensive response. No other portals could open, but that didn't stop the hail of clay pots from ending their flight. Merida! Tyrion shouted. I followed his gaze as only just in time as one of the last of the pots smashed against my face. I was thrown to the floor, but my cry from the impact was drowned out by a woman's blood-curdling scream. I looked up as I tried to push myself from the platform's floor to find nothing but green flames. Within them, clutch and stumbling, screaming to the point that her vocal cords tore, was Serena. I screamed in denial and quickly absorbed the heat from the flames, and willed the flames to disperse. Not just from her, but all the rest of it. I had experimented with my power over radiation in the wasteland, and found that my control over radiation was simply control over radiation. But control over energy decay, nuclear fusion, and fission processes, as well as the byproducts of those processes. Fire, as it turned out, was simply a slower, more visible cousin of radiant energy. I pushed myself up to scramble over to the blackened and charred remains of Serena as she crumpled to the floor. I pulled her to my chest, her flesh cracking and sloughing from her bones. I screamed at her, begging for her to be all right, even as Jamie and Tyrion both rushed back to me. The Queen's Guard was quick to start surrounding me. Jon removed his cloak and threw it around me. I had been caught up in the dragonfire as it splashed across the platform, but, unlike Serena and my clothes, I was exempt from the kiss of the flames. "Seven hells!" Robert barked over the panic. "They're on this side of the twins!" I looked up at him, shock and loss churning in my fury. Beyond him, and past the panicking crowd, was a black line on the horizon, churning and charging towards us. Euron had taken the distraction with dragonfire portals to send his army across from us with a simultaneous portal transition. "Send word to evacuate across the neck." "As orderly as you can," I shouted. "We need to get you to safety," Jon insisted. "Save the people," I insisted. "Everyone should have their weapon on them. We turn and fight while those who can't flee." "I don't wish to diminish your zeal or your loss, my dear," Tyrion said, ever the practicalian, regardless of his horrified expression. But we need to get you dressed before we do anything else. I looked down at Serena's corpse and gave her a silent promise that I would avenge her. I stood, calling stone and metal to mold itself around me in a suit of armor as I marched forward, down the stairs towards the oncoming horde. "Soldiers and fighters all," I shouted with a magic-infused voice. "Our enemy is behind us. Take up your arms and move toward them. Trust that they will be safe in your wake. We meet our enemy here and now, for the realm